Hey, YouTube. Thanks for joining us. We just got done wrapping up our 2020 year in review episode where we talked about all the great accomplishments we had in 2020 as a podcast. But we did want to do a quick one here, and this is our top five books, collectively, our top five books for the year 2020. We read 34. We actually found out we read 35 books as we were doing that episode. So of the 35 books, we did have a couple of caveats and books that were disqualified for various reasons, but here's our top five books that were released in the year 2020.
All right, we're going to start at number five. We're going to move our way down. So the number five book of the year, based on an aggregate of our two scores, is Shakespeare for Squirrels by Christopher Moore. Anybody who's paid attention to the podcast for a while will know that we've read probably 7 or 8 of this guy's books. This is the one that came out in 2020, and it is classic Christopher Moore.
Much like the rest of our books, there are no surprises, I think, in the top five. If we would have gone top 6, I think we would have found a surprise, and maybe we'll give that a special mention at some point. But our number 4 book collectively of the year, The Loop by Jeremy Robert Johnson, again, a longtime friend of the podcast. It's hard to find any fault with Jeremy's work. Always interesting, always a little weird, and definitely a solid book at number 4 for the year 2020.
The interesting thing is, when I'm looking at these, I'm like, yeah, this all totally makes sense. I was so excited about all of these books. I'm just going to jump right on to number 3 so you don't hear me babble too much. Number 3 is The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. Another one of those authors that we have spent a lot of time reading and talking about, but this is like next level stuff. It was, for as many books as we've read by this guy, still surprising and still just beyond what you could expect. Really, really good stuff.
You know, it's funny because it's surprising, but it's also so Stephen Graham Jones at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So it's super fresh, but it's still that voice that you've heard in your head reading his other books.
Yep.
Our number 2 book of the year, Survivor Song by Paul Tremblay. So happy for Paul that he has achieved a modicum of mainstream success. We've been with him since Swallowing a Donkey's Eye. Yes, that's actually the title of a book. It's the title of a book you should probably read, but Survivor Song comes in at number 2 on Books Top 5 of 2020.
I feel like with some of these authors, we get to the point where they tell us, oh, I'm writing a book about this, and it's very exciting when that comes out. So I know that we were looking forward to that based on earlier conversations with the author. And I'd be interested to see, in the comments, if anybody expected this to be our number 1 of the year. So if you were listening throughout the year, if you were thinking this is where we were going to land with the highest praise. But overall, collectively, we rated this book our number 1 book of 2020. And that is Mallory by Josh Malerman, the sequel to Bird Box.
I don't know if this is a surprise. I don't think it was a surprise to us. I think if you would ask me today while you were putting the numbers together, what do you think the top book was? I probably would have pretty quickly said that it was probably Mallory. Again, Josh Malerman, brilliant author. Great to see him come off the success of Bird Box's initial book to go on to write many books since then. Some of those coming into reprint in 2021 very shortly, so you'll be able to get your hands on some of the harder to find and rare stuff from him. I think that's fair. I think that list looks solid and is right where it needs to be for 2020.
As we mentioned in our podcast book year in review, there were so many books that we were very excited about reading this year. These just happened to be the ones that we rated the highest overall. And I want to point out in a discussion with Josh Malerman at some point this year, he specifically was saying how 2020 is kind of a defining year for horror specifically, and there was a lot of excellent horror that came out this year. So it'll be interesting to see how that sustains in upcoming years. Anyway, that's not what this is about. This is about what we loved in 2020, and that was our top 5. Very excited about all those books, and we hope that either you have checked them out and enjoyed them as well, or maybe this inspires you to pop one open.
Yep. So that was 5 out of the 35. On our full-length review, we were kind of wondering. So we each read more than 35 books this year, not a ton more, But we're really wondering, how much do you guys read every year? So drop it in the comments. It's the only way you guys can really communicate, like respond to a question like this. I asked it on the other podcast, but really YouTube is probably the best platform. And if you get a chance, maybe even share this video with someone else you know that loves reading as much as we do.
All right, that is our top 5 video for 2020. Hopefully you join us in 2021 for all of our reviews and interviews and everything that we have coming for you, because just looking at some of the lists of things that are coming out, a lot of exciting things on the horizon. So absolutely subscribe and come back for more.